Taryn Kikoheimer of the Natural Resources Defense Council is going to tell us about the. When I read about it, I was just Taryn. I was just blown away because it's just. I've been to Alaska. It's just a most beautiful, untouched, pristine area, and a gold mine will absolutely destroy this area. I mean, there is no question about it. It will. And I would like you to tell us why NRDC is involved in this struggle and what is really going on here that we don't know about.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Paul, and for giving me the opportunity to talk about what I think is one of the worst projects out there today. It is a uniquely reckless mine that would put at risk Bristol Bay and its famous salmon runs. Just to set the stage a little bit, Bristol Bay, Alaska, it's pristine, just as you said. It's wilderness. The watershed contains Alaska's largest freshwater lake. It contains national parks, wildlife refuges, state parks, and it's home to an enormous amount of species, 29 fish, all of the salmon, all 5 species of salmon in North America, 40 different terrestrial mammal species. I mean, this is just literally a gold mine of an ecosystem. But it also contains a big deposit of low-grade copper and gold. And that's exactly what a foreign Canadian mining company wants to exploit. Mm-hmm. And what's so egregious about this is that it puts Bristol Bay is the world's greatest wild salmon fishery. It supplies half the world's sockeye salmon. I mean, it is a robust ecosystem that is sustainable for hundreds and thousands of years to come, but this mining company wants to put it all at risk, and Trump is allowing that to happen.
I see. And this is an area where not only is there a beautiful, pristine wilderness of vast proportions with all the wildlife and nature that supports, a fishery and other things of great environmental importance to humanity, but also the lives of the indigenous people who live there and the numerous nations and tribes that live in that area who would be impacted. What I found interesting was that in the pro-mine materials, they kept insisting there was only a few hundred natives in this area who would be affected, as if that was so unimportant compared to what they said was 105 million ounces of gold that could be recovered from this area.
Well, I mean, let's be fair. One life is very important. Hundreds are very important, and the thousands of people whose entire culture is based on salmon. I mean, this is a very rich cultural heritage that goes back millennia, and salmon is not only the economic backbone of the region, but it's a cultural one. These are subsistence users up there. I mean, they learn how to set net from their grandparents. They learn how to smoke fish. It's still a tradition, and it's their number one food supply. Mm-hmm. And not only is that taking away a culture, it's taking away not only their identity, but their livelihood.
So it would be in return for gold, basically gold, an entire people's culture would be wiped out.
Exactly. We're talking indigenous culture and a commercial fishing culture that brings in $1.5 billion a year. It's sustainable, and it's the greatest salmon commercial fishery in the world.
Well, that's interesting because this playing off of jobs and growth on the part of Mr. Trump and Mr. Pruitt against just some unused land out there that nobody will ever see or care about. This has been going on throughout his whole presidency and before that the campaign, that somehow preserving nature is inimical to economic growth, and I don't imagine most environmental scientists I've talked to do not believe that's true. It's a false dichotomy to put up in the first place.
Exactly. But what's really interesting about this campaign, and it gives me hope that maybe there might be a chance if Mr. Trump actually turned his attention to it, is that this is so much more than just environmentalists wanting to save a pristine ecosystem. This is about American jobs. The commercial fishery supports 14,000 of them. The mine would never promote that at 1,000, short-term jobs at best. Money. The commercial fishery brings in $1.5 million. Like, these are all talking points for Mr. Trump to, it has all the components of his campaign of making America great. This is already great. It's the greatest salmon fishery in the world. It's just completely ludicrous to me that we're even here having this conversation under his watch.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's some element of extreme greed here, because the idea of, and maybe you could describe a little bit of what does it mean to extract 105 million ounces of gold and all the molybdenum and copper he claims that are in this area. I mean, what does it actually mean? What would be built and constructed in order to do this? And I saw some of the videos, which were proudly presented even by the proponents of the mine, which it was shocked the heck out of me. So maybe you can describe what this actually would mean.
Well, so it's very low grade, and by that I mean, to get even an ounce of copper, you have to mine a pound. So to extract all of the minerals that they want, the gold, the copper, the molybdenum, they're going to have 10 billion tons of mining waste. And what's extraordinary about that is not just the amount. I mean, that's huge. That means you're going to have a pit to hold all of that that's as deep as the Grand Canyon. That's enough waste to fill up a major football stadium almost 4,000 times. I mean, that is a lot of mining waste. But what the people are concerned about is not just that you're going to dig this much stuff up just to get a little bit of ore out because it's so low grade. You have to mine that much just to get the little remnants of it. But that this particular waste, when exposed to air, will turn into what's called in the industry as acid mine drainage, and that kind of toxicity sitting at the headwaters of Bristol Bay is what has people concerned. Just a little bit of copper above background levels in water has the ability to confuse salmon. They won't come back to their spawning streams, which is essential for obviously a salmon fishery. And it in some instances it can be, straight up, toxic. And
just kill them, kill the fish.
And just kill them. Exactly.
Right. And also, now they say in their dare I say, propaganda of the mining company that they're going to make basically this, as you just described, a gigantic dammed-in area with state-of-the-art dams and all this kind of stuff. And of course, we've looked at other situations where these kind of dams have failed and had tremendous disasters because of that.
Well, one thing we know is nobody sets out to build a mine that fails. Not anymore. And the other thing we know is all mines will eventually leak. It's just going to happen. And because of that, it just can't ever happen in Bristol Bay.
It's inevitable if they start mining that pollutants will get into the water and have the effect you just described.
They're going to have to store 10 billion tons of waste forever behind these earthen dams that they've been talking about. Now, recently the company has been talking about putting out a smaller mining proposal that's quote-unquote more environmentally friendly, but that's not what they're telling their investors. They're telling their investors they're going to exploit this whole thing, and they need to make it economically viable. They have to build so much infrastructure to get out this little amount of ore because of the remoteness of the area and the low-grade nature of the deposit, that it just won't be economical for them to do anything but eventually a big mine. Maybe they'll start small and it'll get bigger and bigger and bigger, but eventually the mine will stop operations. There'll be 10 billion tons of mining waste left in Bristol Bay that will have to be taken care of forever.
Who takes care of it?
Nothing lasts that long.
Like nuclear war, like nuclear waste or something like that. Who takes care of it? Who's responsible once the gold is mined out, the copper is mined out and sold and processed into jewelry or whatever they make out of it, and everybody who invested is wealthy beyond imaginability? Who is responsible for paying for the upkeep of these facilities for the next 1,000 years?
Well, as long as the mine is in operation, the mining companies, but we all know that that's not going to last forever. So ultimately, it'll come back to the state of Alaska and the people of Bristol Bay, and that's what we really need to come back to, right? Like, they're fighting for their lives and their livelihoods, and that's why they don't want it. They're not going to reap the benefits. A foreign mining company and its corporate shareholders are going to reap those benefits.
What do
They're
we
just
know?
going to pay the price.
Will pay the price, you're saying. Could you tell us a little bit about this company? What is this company? Who is this guy who's in charge of this company, who seems to be the force behind this, and who's jumping in on it right now to finance this?
The Pebble Limited Partnership is no longer a partnership. It's owned solely by a Canadian junior mining company called Northern Dynasty Minerals. It used to be a partnership between Anglo American and Northern Dynasty. Anglo American jumped ship back in 2013. Mitsubishi also jumped ship in 2011, and Rio Tinto, who is heavily invested in Northern Dynasty Minerals, jumped ship in 2014. So some of the world's biggest mining companies, the three largest mining companies, have all divested in this project because for various reasons, but because it's a terrible idea and it's never going to get the social or environmental green light from the region.
So the government, the United States government under the Obama administration at least, and I imagine in conjunction or with the help of NRDC or NRDC with the help of the government, actually brought suit previously to prevent this project from going forward. Am I correct?
Almost. So what EPA did is, at the request of all the people from the region, 9 tribes and the Bristol Bay Native Association and commercial fishermen, they all asked EPA for help. And so EPA came in and did this very comprehensive scientific assessment, which found that even a smaller mine in that area could have potentially catastrophic effects. And because of that determination, that was a 3-year determination, and went through 2 scientific peer reviews and went through multiple public comments. They received over 1.5 million comments in support. Because of that, EPA decided to use its authority under the Clean Water Act and place restrictions on the mine. And at that point, the company sued EPA to try to stop EPA from finalizing those restrictions. So this has been tied up in litigation, and the settlement that you're talking about settles that litigation, as well as other minor litigation that the company brought, to stall EPA, hoping for a new administration. And boy, was that a great strategy. They hit pay dirt when the country elected President Trump.
What now? Scott Pruitt is the head of the EPA. He's obviously very pro. He believes climate change is a joke and is just fake news and all these kind of things. And it just seems to me that what you were saying earlier, that there is that there was a settlement in the case, would be a good thing, but in this case, a settlement was a bad thing. And how is that?
Oh, it's terrible. It completely ignores the will of Bristol Bay, who asked EPA to come in for help. This is a complete reversal of an Obama-era decision, probably just because it was an Obama-era decision, but maybe because Pruitt actually wants to destroy Bristol Bay. I don't know what his thought process was. We do know that Scott Pruitt, when he was the AG of Oklahoma, has signed on to legal briefs arguing against EPA using this kind of authority under the Clean Water Act, and arguing that EPA's authority should be limited. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't a surprise to us that he would settle, but the settlement just completely reverses the agency's position. It ignores all of the science that EPA had meticulously collected. Mm-hmm. It ties the agency's hands for future restrictions on the mine, and it greenlights the mine into a permitting process.
And what is a permitting what does that mean, a permitting process? What does that mean, a green lighting into a permitting process? Explain that to the listeners who might not know that process.
Sorry. So, under our environmental laws, the company will have to go through some hoops. It still has to jump through hoops. It has to comply with the National Environmental Policy Act. It has to apply for permits under the Clean Water Act. And in a normal permitting process, EPA would have the ability to look at a project that's fundamentally terrible, and if the agency sees that there will be unacceptable adverse effects, which is statutory language, the agency can come in and say, don't spend all this money. Why don't we tell you what you can do? And that's exactly what the agency did under the Obama administration. But here, the agency's hands are now basically the settlement strips the EPA of its authority to exercise those kind of restrictions, and just allows the company to try to roughshod over the Army Corps of Engineers and get its permit.
I see. And who actually grants the permit in the end? What's the agency that actually grants this permit?
It's the Army Corps of Engineers who will grant the 404C permit. Obviously, the company's going to have to get numerous other permits from both the federal government and the state of Alaska. You know, they're going to need permits for power. They're going to need permits for a whole bunch of things. But the dredge and fill permit under the Clean Water Act is really the big one, and that's where the fight's going to be centered around.
I see. So what happens now that this permitting process is going to begin? What's the next step? And is the struggle going to continue, or are people going to just give up and let it happen?
People are never going to give up. This is their lives and livelihoods. I think that, if anything, the settlement process has solidified the opposition in a way that we haven't seen in several years. People got a little bit complacent because they thought that this project might be dead. So what's next? The company is basically one step away from bankruptcy. It doesn't have any assets, and it needs a big money partner. So it needs to find that kind of big, Rio Tinto, Anglo-American, Mitsubishi investor. And we know that that some of the big mining companies have looked at this and have walked away. So hopefully other mining companies will do the same. There was an independent report issued by Carisdale Management. It's a New York-based investment company who took a look at Northern Dynasty and thought that their value was worthless, and thought that the Pebble Mine was completely unviable.
Right.
So
unviable.
People are going to investors need to take a close look at this, and there's no doubt that the company Northern Dynasty Minerals will need money to go into permitting. They've said publicly before that it's going to take about $150 million, and they've got about $7 million in the bank. So they're going to need some help. But the next steps are for them finding an investor and then submitting permits.
What's the
permit applications?
Now the company in its website says that this is an important project in order to have the United States become independent of foreign sources for copper and molybdenum. But at the same time, I was wondering, is it necessary? Is it really that necessary for the United States to be independent as far as sources of gold? And what is the purpose? Is there any economic purpose for gold besides just mining something that's worth a lot of money?
Well, I mean, jewelry, right?
Jewelry, right. So
that's your biggest. But the irony, of course, is that there are over 100 jewelers, including Tiffany and Company, that have pledged never to source gold from the Pebble Mine should it ever be built, because it is just that environmentally and socially toxic.
So it just seems vindictive. This whole thing, I mean, the feeling I get, I'm not sure if you know anything more than that, but the feeling I get from you and from how you're describing what the government's position is that they are vindictively, because their hatred, I guess, or whatever motivates them, dislike of opposition to environmentalists, to destroy a beautiful spot in the world, just to say, we can do that, and we're going to do it.
There's no doubt that Scott Pruitt is toxic to the environment, and that he, is charged with protecting an environment that he has no desire to. Here's my hope. This is such a unique campaign because it has united commercial fishermen and Alaska natives and jewelers and environmentalists and sportsmen. And this is just sort of very unlikely allies. And my hope is that because there are businesses that are against the Pebble Mine, because there are sports, like over 1,000 different hunting and angling groups have signed petitions to EPA against this mine. You have over 25,000 food stores who source Bristol Bay salmon, and hundreds of restaurants and chefs that source it. Like, these are all business owners and business-minded people, and sportsmen and commercial fishermen who voted for Trump, who view this as a big betrayal. And I'm hoping, President Trump is not going to listen to NRDC or our pro-environment message. I wish that weren't true, but it's something that I believe. What I am hopeful for is that they will listen to this business message and the message from the people that voted for him saying, this isn't what we want.
In case he doesn't listen, what's the plan B?
I mean, of course, we're going to fight this until the very end. So we're going to oppose all of the permits. There'll be lawsuits. Under the settlement agreement, EPA has agreed to start a process to withdraw the determination that would have protected Bristol Bay under the Obama administration. We will obviously fight that and do everything we can to preserve the protections for Bristol Bay. We'll use every tool in the arsenal.
Okay. Can we talk? We have just a few minutes left, less than 5 minutes, and I just wanted to spend that focus in the last few minutes on Scott Pruitt, because I think NRDC has a history in fighting him and the folks who financed him. Can you tell me a little bit about this guy? Who finances him and who put him into power, and what is his role? He seems like a shady character in the sense that he gets a lot of money from ALEC and different organizations that are involved in setting these kind of anti-environmental laws, and he also seems to through his work with the Attorney General's Association to have been working for a long time in building up a governmental organization within the government to undermine the environment on behalf of oil companies.
Excuse me.
Go ahead.
There's no doubt that Scott Pruitt is pro-industry. All of the legal briefs he signed on to, all of the cases that he brought, it's pro-industry. You know, the New York Times has reported on it. We've seen some of his emails. He is pro-industry, and that's the reason why he's there at EPA, is pro-industry. He also claims that he's, pro-locality and pro-state, and for this particular campaign, it's just a slap in the face, because you have a locality, Bristol Bay, and you have a state, Alaska, where the majority, if not the overwhelming majority, people oppose this thing. So he's doing a little bit of a about face here. And, if he were really to hold true to his values, he would listen to the state and the local people who are telling him in no uncertain terms, no Pebble Mine.
The state government of Alaska, they're pretty conservative. Are they standing with the people of Alaska, or are they standing with the federal government?
Well, the state is very pro-development, obviously, and has never met a mine that it hasn't liked. It's always permitted mines. And up until the Governor Walker administration, we were certain that the state of Alaska would have rubber stamped it. Governor Walker ran as an independent, and at least during his campaign, he expressed a lot of grave concern about Pebble Mine. So hopefully the winds are shifting in Alaska. Also, there was an Alaska ballot initiative that passed back in 2014, and it was basically an anti-Pebble initiative, and it requires the Alaska State Legislature to approve anything that would hurt the salmon in Bristol Bay, including Pebble Mine. So it provides hurdles on the state level that the mine needs to jump through.
Right. How could people? Are there national organizations as well, NRDC of course, and others that people can get involved in and become activists with to stop this program? Who can hear this, especially if they're here in New York, hearing this program?
Absolutely. So NRDC, obviously, Trout Unlimited is doing really great work on the state level here. And if anybody wants to check out the websites of the local indigenous peoples that are fighting it, the United Tribes for Bristol Bay represents 14 tribes in the region. They're against the mine, and Commercial Fishermen for Bristol Bay, also a group of commercial fishermen who are adamantly opposed to the mine.
So I'm not even sure. You're in Alaska right now?
I'm based out of our California office, although I do spend quite a bit of time in Alaska when I'm lucky.
Oh, so lucky. You're so lucky to be able to go up there. But save it so that we can all... I've been to Alaska, and I know how beautiful it is, and people could to go up there and recreate and to see this just gorgeous, and just to know it's there, even if you never get to go up there and see it. Tell me about, in the last minute or two, nature for the sake of nature.
Oh,
just because it's beautiful
well,
for no
this
other
is one
reason.
of those thriving ecosystems that the salmon literally bring life, and not just the economic life, but you watch like the runs of millions of salmon come in, and it sustains hundreds of thousands of brown bears, which are grizzly bears, brown bears in the region, and the eagles, and you watch the web of life when you're sitting in Bristol Bay, and you really kind of get it. Like, we're just like the small part of this bigger picture, and the bigger picture relies on the salmon, and that's what the mine would really threaten.
Thank you, Taryn Kikoheimer, for joining us on WBAI's Trump Watch.